this is Will Your Werewolf, and this is episode 75. It is the last in my third series. Yay! And it's the final part of Jimmy the Wererat. I'm going to have a little bit of a break after this. I've done 3 series now, and I need a little bit of time to get my head back together. So, if you want to give me some money, there's a link in the description and you can send me a coffee via that, which would be very nice. Other than that, I hope you enjoy this. Please go back and listen to at least the other episodes of the Wererat series, otherwise this isn't going to make that much sense. But I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. Bye. Well, getting out of a major incident in the centre of London was a bit of an arse. I mean, there were helicopters and SWAT teams and all sorts of special people doing special things. It was one of the biggest terrorist incidents that no one's ever heard of. Again, it was touted as a training exercise for some special anti-whatever group that supposedly defends these lands from special terrorists in various special ways. I did the only thing worthy of a werewolf being hunted by the authorities in London. I ran away. I know, a little cowardly, but hey, say that to my face and we'll see what happens to your face by the end of your statement. It was amazing how no one was hurt during the incident in Canary Wharf Gardens. Pretty impressive, as I killed at least 30 or so people myself, and not in a very clean manner. People say the government are not good at hiding shit. They're right, they're not. But those that run the government are fucking amazing at making very complex situations seem like they never happened. Mainly, they throw money at it. Anyways, I went through the usual shit of having to find someone stylish enough to rob of their clothes so that I was no longer naked. I'd rinsed myself off and ran a long way from the venue of the killings before I decided it was time to become a member of the public once again. I'd waylaid a somewhat dapper gentleman as he was walking his dog early the following day and managed to use his Volvo to get back to the hotel once more. This was beginning to become really fucking annoying. I came here on holiday and what seemed like an exhilarating adventure had become a fucking pain in the arse. I spent the day in the sauna and got a very nice massage from a pretty young lady called Sonia. She had a very nice technique and I now felt very relaxed and very ready to chill the fuck out and have a very long break. After a lovely dinner and a couple of drinks at the bar, Fen and I decided we'd go upstairs and watch a couple of films and try and stay out of trouble. We always watch Matilda as a comfort film, as Danny DeVito is the greatest comedic actor of all time, and we both know that we would be laughing our socks off and having fun as soon as Trunchbull walked onto the screen, 'cause it's brilliant. We sat down and started to enjoy ourselves. I was sipping on a fine Macallan single malt with a titch of water, smooth, and we started enjoying ourselves intensely watching little Matilda bring her books back from the local library. What a sassy little intelligent lady she is. Then it fucking happened. Yeah, shit went and ruined it. At the end of the couch was a blue fucking rat posit. It was Edward's rat posit, and God, it was an evil looking thing. It sat there, and I think it was trying to smile, but it was definitely a leer. I mean, it was frightening. It sat looking at Fen and me. Fen was staring at it, while I was doing my best to ignore it. I was hoping it would just fuck off, but it wasn't getting the idea that it was not welcome. Eventually, I'd had enough and turned towards the thing and made it feel most welcome. Fuck off! Can you not see that we're busy here? I don't want to hear whatever it is that you want to say. I don't care. I'm here now to drink a nice malt and watch Matilda, I cordially said. Fen and I both laughed and spoke the words at the same time. Malt and Matilda, cool. I love those moments when we think the same thing. It brings us close together and we forget about the little ugly fucker that was sitting at the end of the couch for that little moment. At the end of the mirthful moment, we noticed a little reddy pink posit, Bert, at the other end of the couch. He was sitting there in what was, his usual embarrassed state of poise. At least this guy was cute. Look at it. Oh. But I was not in the mood, so I was a little harsh to Bert as well. You know what, Bert? You can fuck off too. We just want a little time to sit and watch our comfort movie together. So can you and him, I pointed at the blue one, do one. For the sake of seeming nice, I will be polite and even add a polite please. There was now a break in the atmosphere as Fen and I returned to watching the stupidly large TV on the wall. On the screen, Matilda was at this moment pictured as probably life-size. They didn't leave, and it became somewhat distracting having them at each end of the sofa staring at us, so I thought that I would be the better wolf and be nice. Look, guys, why not join us to watch the film? I'm sure you could do with a break from all this furtive planning and warfare business. Let's all sit down together and have a laugh at Matilda. I paused the film and waited in silence until I got an answer from them.
Me boss would not like me doing that, said the blue rat.
Fuck your boss. Ignore him for a bit. You can have some autonomous control of your own life. What's your name?
Cedric,
replied the rat. Well, Cedric, Fen here has his own life and he does what the fuck he wants, so your boss can go fuck himself and let you have an hour to watch a film. You might even enjoy it. Come on, Cedric. Take a seat and enjoy yourself for once. It might be fun. Can he hurt you or do anything to you?
No, not really. He does get pretty loud and pissed off at me though,
replied the wee rat. I turned away from him. Fuck him. Are you a rat or a mouse? I asked him. Cedric and Fen laughed at this. I'd not thought it was funny, but now I joined in the laughers, as did little Bert at the other end of the couch. I pointed at Bert. See, he appreciates that's funny too. Cedric seemed to take a little moment to get his thoughts in order and came and perched on a cushion next to Fen, who shifted up a bit to give him some space. I turned to Bert, who was looking hopeful and full of joy. I smiled and indicated the cushion next to me on the seat. Bert giggled and ran to the cushion and climbed to its crown, where he nestled down on his belly to watch the film. Have you two guys seen this before? I asked. Neither of them had, so I began the film again and dimmed the lights so we could settle down and appreciate the total cinematic moment. We were all laughing and pointing out our favourite bits. Our favourite bit was when Danny DeVito tried to take off his hat and it was glued to his head in the restaurant. It was definitely a favourite of ours. This was great fun, and as the final credits rolled, we were having a great time. Me and three animal posits watching a children's film. I mean, from the outside, it must have looked like the premise of a Disney film in itself. The four of us sat there laughing and joking. So, my fine young posits, I asked the two rats, like Treebeard talking to the hobbits. What the fuck is going on? The question, not Treebeardish in its erudition. Why do your bosses hate each other so much these days? It does not make any sense to me. I thought brotherly love was important in this sad and shitty world. Bert looked up at me from his cushion and shrugged.
I don't know, Will.
I turned to Cedric, who was partially snoozing. He opened one eye and fixed it on me.
I'm not allowed to say. He would be really angry if I told yous.
I went and poured another drink as I left a silence in which someone could put an answer, but no one did. So I returned to my seat and leaned forward, my elbows on my knees, trying to look interested in what was happening.
I think they just don't get on no more because of their history and stuff, said Bert. Jimmy was hurt after Edward told his mum that he was a queer. You know, a gay. A turd burger and that.
I nodded.
Jimmy had not told his mum and thought it was his right to tell her that he was queer, not Ed's.
I looked at Fen sitting there with his jaw hanging open at this information. I looked at Cedric, who was busy twiddling his tiny ratty thumbs. He did not say anything, but just nodded at me. So, wait a minute, these ratty types have been around for a few hundred years and have fallen out because Jimmy fell out of the closet? Both little rats nodded. Is Edward homophobic? I asked Cedric. The little rat shook his head.
No, Will. He's very accepting of it all. He knew from being a band that his brother smelt a little of lavender. He was also a little chuffed that he was a chutney ferret because he admired them craze, and one of them was a woofter, weren't he?
So, is Mum upset? I asked.
No, she knew before Jimmy knew himself that he was that way inclined, said Bert.
So, what is the fucking problem then? Do they not just need to sort it out between themselves or something and stop all this fighting shit? I mean, there's no reason for it at all. No one cares and everyone already knew.
I think Jimmy just is a little butthurt, said Bert,
which made me and Fen giggle in a very childish manner. Butthurt. Gaze, butthurt. Sorry. Right. I know the bosses are probably listening into this conversation, so let me talk to them through that telepathic shit you guys do so well. Right. Eddie and Jimmy, I know you're listening. Here is what is going to happen. You guys are going to meet at a location that I decide. I will tell Bert and Cedric tomorrow where that will be. You will be decent fellows and you will come by yourself and you will sort this shit out between you. You're doing my head in. And I think killing either of you is too much of a hassle and no fun at all. You guys are too good to let that happen. Also, your posits are the coolest little guys around, so get it fucking sorted. We arranged the meeting so it would be on late at night in a couple of days' time. We agreed that it would be on a London dock, which meant it would be safe and secure from at least 3 angles as it would be surrounded by tidal waters. It was also a mile drive to the end of the dock, a mile of open space that no one could hide in or be bothered around the site. I'd used this place many times before for clandestine meetings, so I knew it well. It had been decided that the Simpkins brothers would arrive by car and that the only person with them would be the big burly beige brothers. After all, they did have one each. The venue would be a vehicle I had bought from the military auctions the day before. It was a Mercedes-Benz S600 W140 that the late Emir of Qatar had owned. It was a nice car and had cost me what I would class as an utter fucking fortune. The reason for choosing this particular vehicle was it would reduce the paranoia of the 2 rats, as it had the highest rated ballistic protection you could get on a road-going car at B6/B7. This thing could stop small explosive devices and most high-velocity gunfire. Regular low-velocity toys would have difficulty even scratching the paintwork. They would be safe as fuck in this beast, to be honest. Driving the fucking thing wasn't fun though. It wallowed around corners even with upgraded suspension and a massively overpowered 6-litre V12. I couldn't imagine how fucking heavy this thing was. It now sat at the end of the dock, its headlights shining out into a windswept sea. A cloudy night covered the meeting perfectly, and I was hoping it would all go well. At 11 p.m, the 2 posits arrived at the dock. They came with hundreds and hundreds of rats that surrounded them and covered the ground as though it was moving and alive. It made my skin crawl as they covered every inch around us. They clambered over everything, including the car. They were stopping every now and again and searching every inch. The tide of rats came in, and then they flushed out, were away, and there was nothing. Fen and I had got a bit creeped out by this, but once they'd gone, we had a bit of a bravadic banter about the whole thing. Yeah, we were brave, honest. Bert and Cedric sat in front of us the entire time, and the Wererats were obviously using them as eyes, ears and noses for this night. Finn and I knew that if we communicated that they would hear what we were thinking, so I spent my time trying to think of things that had nothing to do with this night, such as a lover tries to do when they're trying not to come. I tried to think of something that would not excite me too much. I also wanted to make it as weird as fuck to freak anyone out who was looking into my skull. Naked Margaret Thatcher was now doing things that I am sure were arrestable offences in this country with some imagined beasties. I quite shocked myself with how depraved my thoughts could be, to be honest. They were even too much for me to describe in this podcast, and you know I never have any difficulty telling you all I do and think. Eventually, even the 2 rat posits left, and the next half an hour was spent in the lovely car listening to the stereo system pump out some marvellous Motown tunes while we chatted and waited for the 2 brothers to arrive. 2 sets of headlights appeared in the rearview mirror as 2 vehicles made their way to the man-made jetty where we were sitting and waiting for them. They stopped 300 or 400 yards to the rear of our vehicle, and we got out of the car to meet and greet the duo. The golden Rolls Royce was replaced by a silver Daimler this evening, ostentatious as fuck, but in it was the dapper little fucker, Jimmy, dressed in a maroon trench coat with matching fedora. Billy Page opened the door for him, and the little man stepped from the car and shook my hand, as he shook himself in the cold of the evening. The wind then pulled at his hat, so he held it down with his other hand, while I asked Fen to take him to the car. Few words were said in greeting as the night was strained and full of portent. I then wandered over to the S-Class Mercedes where Edward sat. I did not know him as well as Jimmy, but he got out himself, closing the door, and he was wearing a grey raincoat over his standard suit. He wore no hat, and his His floppy comb-over hair flapped around in the blustery wind. He waited for me to approach him, then shook my hand for a little too long, holding on to it at the end. Will, if you do anything silly here tonight, you're gonna be so fucking sorry about it. I said nothing and tried not to think anything as he spoke his piece. I just smiled and nodded. Hey, I just want two brothers to get back together as family. You guys need to build bridges and move on. I then walked with him to the car, which I could see he appreciated. Nice vehicle, Will. It must have cost a few quid. Tell you what, I'll take it off your hands after this if you want. I smiled and with encouragement told him he could have it. It was, after all, only needed for this one job. Jamie was already in the car, and Edward opened the passenger door on the opposite side and slipped into the seat without talking. They were in, and about to have the most important meeting of their lives. Brothers were trying to find a way to forget, and move on, bringing the family back together after a simple misunderstanding had driven them apart. I now stood behind the car, leaning my back against the boot, for you Americans, trunk of the car, and sighed about what a beautiful thing I was doing. People think I'm just all about evil and shit, but here I was, bringing them back together forever. In the distance I could see the beiges standing outside their respective vehicles, each having a quick fag, as they say at this end of the country. Red dots of light showed the fiery ends of their cigarettes. I smiled and raised a placatory greeting to them both as I leaned just a little harder on the back of the Mercedes. The car moved under the pressure of my lean, just a little, but it moved. I looked at Fen, who was looking at the beiges, and got his attention with a "Oi!" He smiled at me, and we became the werewolf. He tore into my body and I grew into the well-muscled 8-foot-tall black beast of legend. My ripped clothing sailed off my body into the wind as I began to push the vehicle towards the edge of the dock. I was now leaning heavily into it to get it moving. Panic ensued inside the car at this movement, but I had locked the car from the outside and had spent a little while making sure the doors could not be unlocked from the inside. I had my back to the happenings inside the car, so as the car started to move faster, I turned and started to push it forwards. From this angle, I got to look at what was happening inside the car. I could see panicked movement in the car, but it was just shadows. Then a creature hit the back window with such force that the ballistic glass cracked. It was a horrendous looking thing, a screaming giant rat creature with black eyes and broken teeth. Claws scrabbled at the glass as it screeched and squealed, trying to get at me. I gave him a fang-filled smile and kept my forward push, getting faster and faster. I didn't think that much could get out of the car. It was a fucking tank after all, and I could hear the material ripping and the metal squeal as things were thrown around in the car as the two monsters tried to tear their way out of it. It sounded fucking great. They were telepathic beasts, so I could savour their panicked thoughts running through their heads as they struggled. They initially thought they would tear this vehicle open and get to me. Their ideas were of revenge and what they could do to me in response to this awful treatment. I could see the efforts that they were going to go to, and it warmed my ickle heart. Their thoughts soon changed, though, as they couldn't dig their way from the car, and they began to be filled with fear. My favourite thing in the world was to sample the fear of those that never usually felt fear. It was so thrilling. No, it was much more than thrilling, but I can't really describe how good it is to me. Take the best orgasm you've ever had, times that sensation by 1,000, and then make it last 2 minutes. The joy was logarithmic in its intensity. Eventually, the two shadows in the car literally exploded into thousands of small bodies that rattled around inside the vehicle. I could see little grey furry bodies trying to find any exit that they could, but it was too late. The car's front wheels left the dock and the nose of it fell towards the cold, grey waters of the dock below. I had spent several hours that morning drilling hundreds of tiny holes in the car's floor. I'd done my research and knew that a rat could not get through a 4mm gap, so I had worked through many diamond drill bits to bite through the armoured floor and made the car have the same buoyancy potentially as a heavily armoured sieve. It sank so quickly, in fact, with all the extra weight, that I was kind of upset that it had gone so fast. There was no lengthening of any drama, no tension built. However, I was impressed by how deep the car got before the rear lights went out. It's amazing what you notice, isn't it? Eventually the bubbling stopped and all was silent on the water's surface. In my head I could still feel the panic going on under the water. Panic, panic, panic. Then acceptance of that first breath of water and relaxation as they realised there was no more they could do. Then mental silence. They were gone. I sighed and breathed in the salty air as I turned towards the beiges. A sea of rats ran towards me, millions of little bodies running over each other to get to us. I knew this was my end. They were going to cover me. Fuck. I'd never thought about that. Those fucking cunts in that car-shaped coffin could call these little murids. Would the rodents stop if I jumped into the sea? I prepared to meet the wave of fur. I could not evade them. They were everywhere. I couldn't run as they covered every possible surface. My panic raised in my head. Then they simply stopped and became creatures without a purpose once more, and I watched in relief as they slowly filtered away into the places rats must filter away to. Fuck, 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 I said in my head as the adrenaline dump left my system and the dopamine high gave me the belt I deserved. The Beige brothers hadn't moved. They'd simply continued standing at the doors of their cars, smoking their respective fags, watching what was happening. They both seemed to finish their cigarettes, then stubbed them out on the floor with exactly the same movements and timing. Then they climbed into the protesting cars, gunned the engines into life, and sat there with the headlights blazing. Oh shit. I thought, they must be trying to take me out with the cars now. They're going to try and run me over. But no, they just sat there. Behind me, I heard two small voices as they chatted and laughed. I turned to see Cedric, the tiny blue rat posit, give a hand up to Bert, the tiny red rat posit. They'd climbed the dock's concrete wall and were now sitting on the edge of it looking at me. I could see that no one else but them was looking through those eyes at me. It was done. They smiled and blinked, then still laughing together happily, they wandered off in the direction of the beiges and the cars. They were very jovial as they went, and it would have felt somewhat rude to have bothered them. They briefly stopped at my feet as they walked past me and looked up. Bert gave a big smile, and Cedric gave a thumbs up. Then they were also gone. I woke up 20 yards away from the edge of the dock. My ears rang and my head was booming. I was soaked to the skin. Water was running off the dock's concrete surface in mini tsunamis. I looked at the cars still there now, only a few feet away from me where I lay at this point. Billy Beige wound down his window and passed me an old Nokia phone as I lay on the floor feeling all discombobulated and shit. The C4 was just an afterthought from Brian and myself, just to make sure those fuckers were proper dead. Thanks, mate, for all that. We're now going to fuck off and leave you to deal with all this big explosion and deaths and shit. Good luck. Then they were gone. Then the blue lights and the helicopters arrived yet again. Fuck! That's the end of episode 75. That's the end of Series 3. I will be coming back in a few weeks with Series 4. I'm going to enjoy a little break, and I love you very much. If you like what I do, please share the Werewolf Podcasts. If you don't like what I do, don't share the Werewolf Podcasts. If you want to buy me a coffee, a link in the description below, and thanks for listening. You're all amazing people, and I love you deeply.